Legend of Total War here, and today we're doing another tier list using Tier Maker, this time covering the unit roster of the Warriors of Chaos, which we have done in the past, but that was before their rework, which completely changed anything and made the old Warriors of Chaos tier list completely 100% outdated. Everything has changed for the Warriors of Chaos. In fact, it took me up until now before I was even confident to cover it, because I've had to go through so many campaigns of the Warriors of Chaos just to get a feel for all these various different units. They've now got about 120 different units, and there's so many different ways to use it. Now, before we get into the actual tier list itself, I do need to let you guys know that this video, like pretty much all tier lists, is sponsored by Manscaped. So you guys know I've been with Manscaped for ages. I've been using the Lawnmower 4.0 for pretty much everything hair removal related, from giving myself a buzz cut to shaving my beard on a semi-regular basis. But now they've got a new product on the line called the Beard Hedger. So this one here is specifically designed just for the beard, and it's not just for shaving the beard, it's also for maintaining your beard. So if you actually like growing a nice bushy beard, you can use the Beard Hedger to shape that beard to make it look nice. It also comes with some brushes and some essential oils so that you can maintain your beard and keep it looking nice. It's all about maintaining your appearance so that everybody else doesn't think you're a Nurgle worshipper. So, big supporter of Manscaped. They've been a big supporter of the channel. If you want to check out their products, there's a link in the description where you can get free international shipping. Big thanks to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. It wouldn't be possible without them. Okay, onto the actual tier list itself. Now, I think it's really important we establish some criteria, because I really didn't think that an S to D tier list was going to work. Because, for example, if I was to put a Tzeentch unit at S tier, and then you go and put that S tier Tzeentch unit in a Nurgle army, and then it suddenly increased in upkeep cost by 150%, that's not really a good way to structure it. So we've got to take everything into consideration. So the way to do that, I think, is to categorize things based on high and low potential, based on dedications. So this isn't just going to be me putting all the Khorne units in Khorne and all the Nurgle units in Nurgle, because you can do that yourself, but rather putting the units where they are going to get the most amount of benefit based on their dedication. Now, in most cases, the dedication is linked to whichever they are marked as. And when it comes to high and low potential, it really comes down to how much value keeping an army of these units provides. Like, so for example, if there's a unit that over the course of the campaign can use the warband upgrade and keep getting better and better, then that might be a unit that enters high potential. But if there's a unit that doesn't really get upgraded, that doesn't have a whole lot of effect, that can't be upgraded much in the tech tree, that doesn't have bonuses anywhere, and isn't really a great killer, it's not to say that you shouldn't ever recruit them, but you're just going to get low potential out of them. That being said as well, there may be some units of certain dedications that belong in others. So let's go through it. There's a lot of units to go through here, 120. So let's start going through it. Now, I'm going to be fairly quick on some of them because the roster can get a little bit samey, but I think you'll get the gist of what I'm talking about. So, starting off basically with Marauders. The basic Marauder units, both of them have actual high potential in Undivided. If you want to switch them to a different dedication, then you should totally do that and then immediately change them. You don't need experience on your basic Marauders in order to give them a dedication. So all the Marauders of each type should go into the Lord of their respective mark, and they have high potential not because these are individually strong units, but because they are the beginnings of extremely strong units later down the track. And the same thing kind of goes with the Chaos Warriors. So the Marauders will eventually become Chaos Warriors here, and it's the same thing with Khorne. This is all pretty straightforward. High potential units because they've got a ways to go. There's a better unit that comes after them. So it's really quite simple with these. It gets more and more complex as we go further down. Okay, these are all high value units. Then you've got the Chosen. Chosen are good units in Warhammer 3. So this is a unit that I put in like D tier or C tier before in like Warriors of Chaos in the previous one. But now Chosen actually perform really well because even on very hard battle difficulty, because you've got no supply lines and there's very little amount of melee cheats that the AI get, Chosen are of high value for the Warriors of Chaos, especially considering it's very difficult now to just spam single entities like you could before. Like in the way the Warriors of Chaos used to work, you just spam what's it called? Spam Dragon Ogre Shaggers, because you didn't have unit caps, or there was nothing limiting you from doing that. There was no supply limits or anything, and so those were by far your best units. But now, having dedicated armies full of Chosen absolutely works, and I've done it in my campaign, and it totally works. But you should definitely dedicate it to the Lord that's respective. So you should have your Chosen of Khorne in a Khorne army. Possibly a mortal. The demon princes tend to be better for demon units, but it's not to say that you can't have a demon prince attached to these guys. Now, when it comes to Slaanesh ones, as an example, Sigvald the Magnificent, who is of course dedicated to Slaanesh, his Doomstack is essentially the Chosen of Slaanesh. He does a good job of boosting them. Now, here's the thing with the Undivided ones, what gives them such high potential as well, is that these guys here, that's not the edge of their limit. They can then be boosted to Aspiring Champions, whereas the Divided ones can't turn into a Aspiring Champion. That's the limit for them. But the Chosen of various dedications, these guys are kind of stronger than the Undivided ones. It's just that these guys have a step up, and these guys here have super high potential because of the tech tree giving them just absolutely tons of bonuses. Aspiring Champions can potentially become very good throughout your campaign. Then we've got the Forsaken. Now, I'd say that Forsaken actually kind of have Undivided low potential, because they're not boosted quite as much as these units, and they don't have far to ascend. They turn into either a divided, a marked version of the Forsaken, or they become Chaos Spawn, which they're not really my favorite units. They just don't have a huge amount of potential. So there is one exception, the Forsaken of Tzeentch. So Forsaken of Tzeentch is actually going to end up with high potential, but I'm reserving this specifically for Village the Curseling, because he reduces the upkeep cost of them by 50%, and then these guys here can be transformed into Chaos Spawn of Tzeentch. But as for all the other variants of Forsaken, it's not to say that you shouldn't recruit them, because you will find them in areas with the various corruption, but I usually try to phase these guys out once the army's full and I find better units, because their potential is relatively low, with the exception of this one here, but I reserve that only for Village. Now, when it comes to Chaos Warhounds, this is a unit you can actually boost a fair bit, because there is pasture buildings that provide 5% extra physical resistance. But even with those boosts, these units here kind of don't really achieve amazing potential. Even with 90% physical resistance, they're not high damage output, they're extremely low leadership. So even with those huge boosts, I would say that this is a fairly low potential unit. So those two there are Undivided, and this is the Chaos Warhounds of Khorne. If you're going to recruit this, it makes sense to put it in Khorne, but it doesn't have particularly high potential. Now this one here, on the other hand, is a demon, and you can do a lot more with the Fleshhounds of Khorne, so I'm going to put them under high potential. Then you've got Marauders. Now, Marauder Cavalry. Funny thing with Marauder Cavalry is there's actually a lot going on the campaign map in terms of resources that you can get to give them really significant boosts. You can increase the amount of ammunition that they can hold by 25% each for every wood resource you acquire, and then you can increase it further, increase their damage output further by obtaining obsidian. So all of the Marauder horsemen have extremely high potential just on that. In the early stages of the campaign, they're not going to be that good. But if we have a look at this campaign here, if I could just find one of my Marauder Cavalry armies that has some in it. I think there's one over here. Obviously I don't own the whole map yet, but we're seeing a massive amount of extra ammunition, which provides them with a ton of value, and that missile strength there is pretty good. And this is just the beginning of what they can achieve. In addition to that, they can get extra leadership through, I think through the wine resource. I can't remember exactly, but there's just a lot that you can do with the Marauder Horsemen, which gives them really high potential, which includes the Marauder Horse Masters and also all the dedicated horsemen. So all of those have high potential. Now that doesn't mean that you should recruit them, but if you're going to focus on them, you can get a lot out of them. Now, funny thing is that Marauder Horsemen can be upgraded to Chaos Knights. And in some cases, the Chaos Knights is the edge end of their limit. So for example, if we take an undivided, if I just have a look, no, that's a borrowed army. Where have we got an army? Just look over here. If we have a look over here at the undivided, the Chaos Knights is the end of the line for them. They don't get better. But if we have a look at Khorne, for example, they have Skull Crushers. Nurgle, end of the line. Slaanesh, end of the line. Although for Slaanesh, they actually have one that has to be upgraded first before they can become Chaos Knights. And then Tzeentch has the Doom Knights of Tzeentch. I think that's important to take into consideration when it comes to... Let me just get away from that, or else we'll be constantly talking. That these guys here, while they are strong units, there's not tons you can do to boost them, and the only person that really has a Doom stack for Chaos Knights is Archaon. So I would say that while they are strong units, there's not much you can do with them beyond just recruiting them. So I'm actually going to put them on low potential because the Marauder Horseman variants actually can become better than them because of all the upgrades. These guys just don't have significant amounts. They do have some. So for example, I think there's these here provide an extra charge bonus for all Chaos Knights, Marauder Horsemen, and Marauder Horsemasters. But again, anything that they get, the Marauder Horsemen get as well. And an extra 5% charge bonus for a relatively rare resource is not that big of a deal. So I'm going to put them on low potential for Undivided. For Khorne, I'm actually going to put them at high potential because they can upgrade to a better unit. For Tzeentch, high potential because they can upgrade to a better unit. Nurgle, low potential because that's the end of the line. And for Slaanesh, I'm actually putting them on high potential because they're actually better than all the other variants because they're quick. Because of the bonuses that the Mark of Slaanesh provides, benefits them greatly. Even though that's the edge of their limit, they don't get any better. They don't get a better variant. These are the best out of the cavalry due to speed, because that's the most important stat for cavalry. They need to be able to outrun their other cavalry variants. And by extension, because these guys here are quite good, that gives these ones as well, who are the unupgraded versions, high potential as well. And then you've got the Doom Knights of Tzeentch, which I think is a really good unit. You can do a lot with it. I think that is a high potential unit. The Skull Crushers of Khorne, high potential unit. Now, we've got Chariots. Loads of different variants of Chariots here. Now, the thing to note about Chariots is that you can boost Chariots over and over again by obtaining the Tusks resource. This one here gives weapon strength plus 10% for Chaos Chariot units faction-wide. So it's a relatively rare resource, but 10% is quite significant. So getting just a couple of those can really make these guys here smash through infantry quite significantly. So in the early stages of the campaign, I'd say probably lower end of low potential, but can become quite significant later down the track. So all of the Chariots are boosted by it, so they all get high potential. So that's the Chariot of Khorne, which eventually turns into the Gore Beast of Khorne. Nurgle, high potential. Tzeentch, high potential. And also Slaanesh, high potential. Because you can just hit really hard. Now, the Trolls. This is a unit in the past that I have absolutely shat all over. But in Warhammer 3, Trolls for the Warriors of Chaos are really good because of the Spice resource, which gives them extra melee attack. So both the regular Chaos Trolls and armored variants of Chaos Trolls should be put into, in my opinion, into an undivided army. But you really could put them in any. You might also be keen to put them in Nurgle for extra healing, but they heal on their own and they can't revive entities, so they don't need to be part of Nurgle. It's just that about getting the undivided authority to make these guys replenish faster and reduce their upkeep costs. So that's the case there. Now, currently at this point here, no unit is outside of its dedication. All the undivideds are within undivided and so on and so forth. But we're going to start to see some differences soon. Okay, so Chaos Spawn. I don't value Chaos Spawn as much as Chaos Trolls. They have the same purpose, but I just think Chaos Trolls are better because these guys here don't benefit from those same buffs. The only benefit that that a Chaos Spawn has over Trolls is unbreakable. So I'm going to put that as low potential. I just don't think you can really do much. And that's the end of the line for it, for that. And also you can turn Aspiring Champions into Chaos Spawn, but I don't know why you would do that. It's not worth doing that. Now you've got the Chaos Spawn of Tzeentch, however, and because Village specifically can do a lot with those units, it's going to end up in high potential. But that is specific for Village. And then for Khorne and Nurgle and Slaanesh, not great units. So they're going to end up in low potential. Now, Dragon Ogres. The first person to think about here is obviously Kurlek Suneater. He can boost these guys by an absolute ton. So I'm going to put this under high potential specifically for Kurlek Suneater. Now when it comes down to Dragon Ogre Shaggoths, this is a weird one here because there's a lot you can mess around with this. So Dragon Ogre Shaggoths can be put into Kurlek's army, but they're only really going to achieve their full potential with a Nurgle character. So while the Dragon Ogre Shaggoths should be attached to Kurlek Suneater should endeavor to get exalted heroes of Nurgle, so to heal these guys. So I'm actually going to put this under Nurgle because Nurgle can heal them, because you can't get a Nurgle spellcaster Lord. You can get a Nurgle spellcaster Lord. You can't get a Nurgle spellcaster hero. You can only get the exalted hero that can provide a bit of healing. So they're actually best within a Nurgle army. Even though Kurlek Suneater provides the stat buffs, healing is more valuable than the stat buffs he provides. It's a weird one with that. Then we've got the Feral Manticore. This one here is a very high potential unit because, like the Warhounds, they are increased in physical resistance for every pass you're building. You've got a really good technology which gives them Gore Feast so they can regenerate, which means you don't need to put them in a Nurgle army to heal. They're actually best off in an undivided one because of the undivided authority. But you could very easily just put these in a Nurgle army as well if you want that extra healing. But I'm going to put it under undivided there. Very high potential for Chaos Manticores. Then you've got the Chaos Giants. So Chaos Giants, there's not that much on in the resources that can provide boosts to Giants, but Giants are actually quite good in Total Warhammer 3 because there's loads you can do to increase their missile resistance through technology and through Chaos Gifts. But the best Lord type to dedicate your Chaos Giants, which they'll always be considered undivided except for the Regiment of Renown variant, Chaos Giants should be put into Nurgle armies. Okay, Nurgle gives them the best chance because of all of that healing. Festus is a particularly good example of a legendary lord that is able to get the most out of Chaos Giants. Another thing with Nurgle characters is that they're able to get boons of chaos that can increase the heal cap of their entire army. So Chaos Giants are a good choice, a really good choice actually, for Nurgle characters. And that was kind of what these guys were missing all along. The missile resistance and regeneration was what these guys missed in Total War Warhammer 2, but they've got it now in Total War Warhammer 3 with Nurgle. Very high potential with them. Okay, now we're moving on to the demon section. So we've got the Bloodletters of Khorne here, both regular and exalted. These should obviously be placed into Khorne armies. I'm going to give them high potential because I think they're good units, but a thing to note is that they should be given to Demon Princes. When it comes to the base level of any demon, the Demon Princes are able to provide the most amount of value for these units. If you're going to go with a mortal Khorne character, then I think Chosen goes best for them, but it's entirely up to you. The difference is kind of trivial. Now, onto the Tzeentch ones. The Blue Horrors of Tzeentch don't upgrade to Pink Horrors, so they're shit. Put them under low potential, only recruit them in an emergency. Whereas the Pink Horrors can turn into the Exalted Pink Horrors, which are pretty good. Then you've got same sort of thing with the Slaanesh. You've got the Demonettes, which can upgrade into Exalted Demonettes. Now I know that there are the Champions of Chaos characters. If you're playing as them, you can't upgrade them at the moment. They're bugged. But if you're playing as Be'lakor, you can. I've done it throughout my own campaign. So if you're playing with Bellicor, you can actually upgrade it. So let's just assume the game was working as intended. I know it's not in some cases, but I am aware that that these base level demons, they can't currently be upgraded with the Champions of Chaos characters. But let's just assume that later down the track, if you're watching this 3 months from now, that hopefully it's fixed by then. Then you've got Nurglings. Nurglings don't upgrade into anything, so I would say that's a low potential unit. Only recruit that in an emergency. And then we've got the Plague Bearers, which high potential, you can get a lot of value out of them. Then we've got the variants of the Chaos Furies. I would only ever recruit these guys in an emergency. They don't really serve a huge amount of value for any particular army, apart from just chasing away missile units, which they're okay at. But I'd say that in terms of their overall potential, it's pretty low. I'd say for all of the variants, you're just not really going to get much out of them. Unless you work really hard at it. I just think there's way better units you can use. Then you've got the Nurgle flying Rotfly things and Plague Drones. Not great units, in my opinion, for the Warriors of Chaos. Oh, sorry. I was meant to put it down here. I'm just going to say low potential. There's just better units for you to recruit as Nurgle. Then you've got the Screamers of Tzeentch. These are okay. I wouldn't put them under high potential. It's just not really that much you can do. Even when you're playing as Bellicor and you've got reduced upkeep cost, 25% for all demon units, you've got better units to choose from. So put your what's it called, the Gifts of Chaos in other things. It's not to say as well that you should not get these units, but I don't value them as highly as others. And then we've got the Plague Toads. Again, I would put that under a fairly low potential. But the Beast of Nurgle, I'd actually put that as high potential. That's a fairly good unit. So that's okay, that one. Then we've got the Flamers of Tzeentch. That's a very good unit as well. Using these guys in combination with each other, you can get a lot of value out of that. Now, funny thing here with the Fiends of Slaanesh, the role of monstrous infantry is well and truly covered at this point. But there are a number of potential Slaanesh buffs through the Boons of Chaos you can have by fighting a battle with Fiends of Chaos, Fiends of Slaanesh. So I'm actually going to put them as high potential, not because they're good units necessarily, which they're not bad, but because characters can get benefits from them if they get that potential, what's it called, Boon of Chaos actually show up. Then we've got the Chaos War Shrines. Now, the funny thing about Chaos War Shrines, you've got to get a Gift of Chaos in order to start obtaining them. But you can obtain these War Shrines through your characters, so you don't need to actually recruit them outright. So you can get, for example, the War Shrine of Tzeentch by having a Tzeentch spellcaster in your army. So I would say that for the unit itself, I'm going to put it under low potential because it'd just be better to put a Tzeentch spellcaster in your army or have your Lord on the Chaos Shrine if you needed it for that particular one. Now, that's not to say that a War Shrine isn't useful, but you don't need loads of them, so just have one hero on a War Shrine. That covers the effect, in my opinion. The Nurgle one, however, Nurgle one providing like regeneration in an area, that actually has a lot of value. Whereas this one here, it's I believe it's spell mastery. I just don't think it's that important to have in your army. Whereas even in a spellcasting army like Tzeentch, is just, if you've got a hero doing it, that's good enough. But these ones here providing healing can be quite valuable because you can't get a spellcaster hero of Nurgle. You can get an exalted hero of Nurgle, but they can't get a War Shrine mount. You can put your Lord on this, but I don't think you should put your Lord on that mount because you may need to have him move around because they have a tendency of targeting these guys with missiles. So it's a bit of a different scenario there. The Slaanesh one, there is a spellcaster hero of Slaanesh, so you can put it on a War Shrine. So you don't need to recruit the actual unit itself. As for Khorne, they don't have the War Shrine hero because they've only got the exalted hero of Khorne, and he gets, I think, he gets a horse, a Gorebeast chariot, and a Juggernaut. So if you want to get this, I don't think you should ever put your Lord on it. I think that's okay, because that boosts their stats quite considerably. And then you've got the Undivided one, which provides physical resistance. Again, you can put an Undivided hero, Undivided spellcaster, and have him on a War Shrine. So you don't need to actually recruit this unit at all if you don't want to. Although, one thing to note is that the unit itself is able to get 15% extra ward save through the tech tree, but heroes are able to overcome that and get even more by simply equipping items. So the heroes are always going to have more potential than the war shrine, the regular war shrines, except for the ones that you can't get the heroes for. Okay. Now, the greater demons of the various ones. This is an interesting scenario, right? Because you've got to toss up between which is more practical, which lords are going to give you the most amount of value, and the actual authority that you have in your army. Now, obviously, if you're playing one of the champions of chaos, you're not going to be able to get all of this. But if you're playing undivided, such as Bellicor, when it comes to a Bloodthirster is going to receive its highest value in a Nurgle army because of its ability to heal. Because if you've got this one here in a Khorne army, while you can make it cheaper and get it faster replenishment, in order to give it any regeneration whatsoever, you have to have a Nurgle character attached to your Khorne army. And that character is what's going to provide the most amount of value to the Bloodthirster. Now, the same thing is true, of course, for the Great Unclean One and also the Keeper of Secrets, but not the Lord of Change, because any Nurgle authority usually means negative Tzeentch authority, and so you don't want to be paying 1,000 upkeep cost just for regenerating a unit that really should be used as a spellcaster, kind of. So I would say that this unit here should just be kept in Tzeentch army. And don't worry too much about regenning it, because they've got barrier. Just try not to get them damaged. It's just not worth having this unit cost 1,000 gold just so you can regenerate it. You can do it if you want, but they're more value, I think, just staying in Tzeentch. If you want to have strong single entities, you've got these two here to choose from, which are vastly stronger melee fighters than them anyway. Now, when it comes to the Soul Grinders, it's basically the same scenario. The Khorne one should go into Nurgle, the Nurgle one should go into Nurgle, the Slaanesh one should go into Nurgle, and the Tzeentch one should go into Tzeentch. Now, that's not to say that they can't all go into their own dedications, but really the highest value and highest potential is going to be with some kind of healing. Even if they're a little bit more expensive than being in there. Like, for example, if you've got a 10 authority, Nurgle authority character, they're not going to benefit from that. But through your tech tree, you're going to be able to get at least some Nurgle authority by base. And it's okay even if, sorry, not some Slaanesh authority, some Khorne authority, right? As an example. But you're not going to have any Tzeentch authority. For every 1 point of Nurgle authority, you're going to get 1 negative, right? And going into the negative authority is way worse than being on low positive authority. So the upkeep cost penalties and replenishment cost penalties go quite significantly higher, respective to positive. That's why you should keep negative authority units out of your army entirely. Unfortunately, Nurgle and Tzeentch, they are just not going to get along at all, even if you do really want the regen. The best way to handle, if you want to get a regenning army for Tzeentch, is to put them all in a Tzeentch army and then create a Nurgle character lord, and have him simply follow that army and reinforce. That way you can use him to spellcast without having to have his authority attached to the army. And you could do the same thing with these guys here, but again, you don't have to. Now, last things over here, we've got the artillery. I don't think that hell cannons have a whole lot of value anymore. The Warriors of Chaos just don't really need artillery because you've got the Shatterstone ability, so you don't need it for sieges. Most of their faction stuff relies on rushing at the enemy, so they kind of create a weakness. So I'm going to put these under low potential, largely because this one here is an artillery piece that is quick and is actually way more valuable. So I would put this under, if you wanted to have artillery, go for a Skull Cannon of Khorne. This is a way better unit that can regen. It doesn't have crew and it's way quicker. Just recruit those if you basically just need an emergency unit. But I don't think it has a whole lot of value for the Warriors of Chaos anymore. Anyway, there is my unit roster for the Warriors of Chaos. A ton of playtesting has gone into figuring out what should go where, which lords should be in charge of which lords which units you really shouldn't focus on. But overall, I think that the Warriors of Chaos roster is so much better now than it used to be. Obviously, there's so much more variety, but every single unit has some value. There's not a single unit in here that you should just never outright recruit in any of your campaigns. It really comes down to some units are better than others, but every single unit can provide you value in your campaigns. So it all comes down to what your personal preferences are, which is how the campaign, I think, should be. So they've done a good job with that. Anyway, that's the end of this one here, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Don't forget to check out Manscaped, link in the description. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.